The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
While some people were speaking about how the temple was adorned with costly stones and votive offerings, Jesus said, "All that you see here, the days will come when there will not be left a stone upon another stone that will not be thrown down." Then they asked him, "Teacher, when will this happen? And what sign will there be when all these things are about to happen?" He answered, "See that you not be deceived. For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am he,' and 'the time has come.' Do not follow them. When you hear of wars and insurrections, do not be terrified, for such things must happen first, but it will not immediately be the end." Then he said to them, "Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be powerful earthquakes, famines, and plagues from place to place. And awesome sights and mighty signs will come from the sky. Before all this happens, however, they will seize and persecute you. They will hand you over to the synagogues and to prisons, and they will have you led before kings and governors because of my name. It will lead to your giving testimony. Remember, you are not to prepare your defense beforehand, for I myself shall give you a wisdom in speaking, that all your adversaries will be powerless to resist or refute. You will even be handed over by parents, brothers, relatives, and friends, and they will put some of you to death. You will be hated by all because of my name, but not a hair on your head will be destroyed. By your perseverance, you will secure your lives." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
So one day, this is about 20 years ago, I was a manager for a team of these computer chip designers. So my boss came to my office, and it was just a cubicle. My office was a cubicle, and there was this large open floor with a bunch of cubicles in there. He came to my office because he was upset. He was upset with something that I had done, and he wasn't like yelling or screaming. He was just loudly expressing his feelings in a less than healthy way. So both my boss and I, we were standing for this conversation, and the cubicle walls were like 5 feet, so you could see people when they were standing, but if they were sitting down, you couldn't see them. And I remember like looking back behind him while he was, loudly talking, and there's this gopher thing where people like popping up to see like what's going on over there. So now I knew my boss was going to be mad at me because I let our main customer know for the chip that we were building for them that it was going to be a lot bigger. It was going to be a lot bigger than what they had previously anticipated or estimated. And that means that they were going to pay a lot more money for it. And they did not like that at all. So one of the things you need to understand, that one of the aspects of this dynamic is that my boss had been recently promoted. Okay, so that position that he vacated, I got promoted into that position. And you can guess who had the previous estimate put out there. And so, so once I got in there, I saw that something was off, and I needed to go about the business of fixing it. So my response, to my boss when he was expressing his upset feelings to me was to just let him talk. I did not defend myself. I didn't interrupt him. I didn't grovel. I just kind of let him unspool. It's kind of the weirdest thing happened somewhere. He was like in the middle of a sentence, and he just kind of spun off on his heels and took off. But from then on, I don't know. He never lost his composure like that again, and he didn't even bring up this whole thing to me later. That was just one little event. And actually, somehow, we ended up having a good relationship afterwards, and I'd like to figure out how that happened. I'm not sure how that happened. But see, the thing is, my behavior in that moment, in that time, the way I was receiving that from my boss, the way that was working for me, that was completely new. That was a very new thing for me. I mean, if that same thing had happened like 6 months earlier, it would have crushed my soul. I mean, I would have been like this smoldering heap of ash or something. It would have been terrible for me. Because if someone disapproved of something that I had done, I mean, even if I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, um, if they disapproved of me, it tore me apart. So I had this, I experienced this loud, this loud boss publicly losing his control over in my presence there. If I'd had that just a few months earlier, that would have been a bad situation for me. So what was going on for me at that time? What was this big change that allowed me to survive, not only survive, but actually thrive in this situation that would have been crushing for me just a little bit earlier? And so the big change that I made was I decided to stop trying to cast this false image of perfection. And so, for most of my adult life up to that point, almost all my adult life up to that point, I was working constantly to maintain this image of a person that just never made mistakes, and that means I was living a gigantic lie, right? Because I make mistakes, but once I would see, oh, I made a mistake over there, I would jump through all sorts of hoops trying to reduce the visibility of my mistakes. And, I think I threw some people under the bus around me, just to try to cover up my mistakes. I did anything and everything to maintain my perfect image. Anyway, I think I've confessed that. I'm not sure. Maybe we should see each other after Mass. But I don't know why that's not written down here. I don't know. Anyway, sorry about that. Okay. But at this point in my life, when my boss is loudly talking to me, instead of projecting this false image of perfection, I decided just to let the real me, with all my ugly imperfections, be seen by everyone, including my boss. And at first when I started doing this, I started to let go of my perfect image. That was terrifying. I feel that the real me would be rejected or viewed as fundamentally defective. And in a way, my choice to give up the false image of perfection, that was kind of a death for me. My dream of being viewed by everyone as this perfect person, that dream died. So I let that go, and I decided instead just to embrace the truth with all of its ugliness, no matter how much it cost me. But here's the shocking truth about that. My anxiety dropped a ton, okay? I was no longer working so hard to maintain this false image. And that meant that my ability to enjoy life increased a ton. And somehow the people around me, they preferred this calm, relaxed, real me to the jumpy, stressed out, fake me. And so the more I showed the ugly truth about who I was and who I am, the more people seemed to like it. And that, for me, was a gigantic contradiction. And so this contradiction, this idea about, the truth and things like that, it's better to adhere to the truth, even in difficult circumstances. There's a large part of that is playing out in the gospel today. Luke writes, he's writing in 60 AD, about 10 years before the temple was torn down. And the temple was a fabulously impressive structure. It was large, it was tall, and it had all these gems on it. And even from a good distance away, when the sun was hitting it just right, you could see these gems glinting off the temple. And Jesus tells people that this impressive structure is going to be completely demolished. At that time, it would have been hard to imagine such a reality. But, Jesus was speaking this ugly truth to people. And then he goes on to share some other scary stuff, saying that there's going to be wars and earthquakes and plagues and famine. And we've had all that. Then Jesus shares about all the consequences that you're going to face for being a Christian. He says that if you choose to follow him, you're going to be persecuted, made to stand in front of hostile authorities and give your testimony. Some of those who are put in this difficulty will be killed for their faith. And they will be put there by family members that don't like their Christianity. It doesn't sound too great to be a Christian, honestly. But that depends on your desire to adhere to the truth or not. But here's the thing about speaking this ugly truth, about living in the truth. It's better. It's actually better to adhere to the truth. It's better for you. You have a better life in that response, in that situation. It's better in this life and in the life to come. So, I'm not advocating that you run around and loudly condemn people to hell for their apparent sinfulness. That's not the ugly truth. That's just ugly. What I am saying is it's better for you to stick with what is true, even if that means that you are testifying against your perceived self-interest. The choice to stick with that truth will lead to a better life for you. And Jesus says, don't prepare a defense for yourself. Why would you need it? You're not going to know what accusations people are going to make about you. And if you're in the habit of seeking and speaking the truth, you're going to naturally deepen your spiritual life, because when difficult situations arise, you're going to be more interested in listening to God's guidance. And with a habit like that, how much easier will it be for you to listen to what the Holy Spirit has to say about those difficult circumstances that you're in? Jesus says that in our persecution as Christians, that not a hair on our head will be destroyed. And he makes that point right after saying that some Christians will lose their lives for their faith. Trust me, losing one's life is a bigger deal, than losing some hair. But so obviously he's making a point that there's more to the story than just this earthly life. There's something coming after this life. So that brings us to the big idea, the big point of this homily. When we let go of worldly interest and embrace all that is true, it is good for us. A life spent walking with God is vastly superior to a life spent trying to earn the good opinion of others. Adherence to the truth is good for us now, but it is also good for us in the next life. It prepares us for the next life because there will be no place for anything but the truth in that next life.